Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, y'all know, some of the speakers when they hear like a really dead crowd, they kind of get everyone to stand and do some yoga, talk to people, talk to a stranger. Now, shall we all sit down? Just kidding. So I'm not that kind of speaker, so don't worry. I'm not going to make you talk to strangers because I hate doing that myself. Anyway, thank you all for joining this talk or just trying to escape the heat in this session. My name is Elisha Tan and I'm visiting from Singapore, here to talk to you more about TechLadies and how do you think about designing initiatives that can increase gender diversity. So, let's get started. Okay, this is interactive, but you just have to raise your hand in your seat, so no worry, low lift. So I want to have a quick show of hands. How many of you think that hosting events is the best way to increase gender diversity in tech? All right, thank you. And how many of you think that it is hackathons? We need more hackathons. Okay, a few small ways, but I'll take it. And how many of you think mentorship? Like mentorship is the way. Right, more hands. And how many of you think that it's more workshops? We need more workshops. Okay, more hands, good. So the right answer is that all of you are correct and all of you are wrong. So when you come to think about programs, designing initiatives for diversity, there is no one-size-fits-all thing that you can do that can magically increase more gender diversity in tech. So instead of doing one-off, seemingly random stuff, there got to be a better way to think about what needs to be done. So when I think about what are the programs and initiatives that I want to run for TechLadies, I need to figure out how to think. And this is why I sought to find inspiration from the product thinking methodology. This is a very well-worn path. And you can see it, I think you probably recognize it. This is the Google Design Product Thinking. And based on this, I started to use this as an inspiration to guide me on what my thought process should be like when it comes to designing programs for diversity. And this is why I landed. It's what I call the program design methodology. 100 points for creativity and a great name. And this is just what I use to guide how I think about my vision, and then understanding the problem, to deciding what are things that I want to test, actually doing it and iterate along. And just like designing for products, this is an iterative process and it's non-linear. Sometimes, you might want to come up with a better idea before you already understand the problem. And this process is a constant work in progress. What I'm trying to say is that this is a completely unscientific way, so don't quote me on that. And because it is unscientific, I can have rainbow colors and beautiful. And this is just something that I found to be very useful for me, which is why I want to share it with you. But using this process, this is what I've come up to 6 programs under the TechLadies brand to help more women enter the tech industry. And you can see that this loosely maps onto a user journey on how women can enter the industry. So because I do have a lot of stuff out there, this time in this talk I'll just focus on the 12 weeks bootcamp, on how I use the process to design the 12 weeks TechLadies bootcamp. But first, I want to tell you a story about how I entered the tech industry. I am not a software engineer, and I actually did psychology in university. And back then, all I could do was to use Microsoft Paint. Not even Photoshop, just Microsoft Paint to create an image you see out here. But as a fresh grad, I wanted to start my own tech startup, and like everyone else, I couldn't find a tech co-founder, and that is when I learned how to code through the help of a friend. And that experience taught me a few things. The first and the biggest lesson is that the ability to code is such a superpower. Like any problem that I face or the problem of other people face, I could solve it easily, create something with code that can make their life a lot easier. And in my experience of learning how to code, I actually hired my friend as a tuition teacher. Every week we would sit down and he would teach me different concepts to building my tech startup. And not only that, he introduced me to everyone in the Ruby community. And people are so nice. Like, there are people whom I could, ping at 1 a.m. because my app stopped working, or, sit down through a weekend to help me debug my product. It's awesome. But when I look around me, I started to wonder, like, where are the women? Awkward silence. Is there something that's stopping women from coming to experience technology? I believe that technology is meant to be accessible for everyone. It doesn't discriminate. So to me, I feel that it is a shame that women are put off by technology because they think that it's a man's thing, which is not true. It's for everyone. Well, having said that, I don't think that all women should learn how to code. I think that's not empowerment, that's oppression in another way. But what I do believe is to give women a way to come and experience technology and see it for themselves. If they try programming, they hate it, it's fine. I just want people of different backgrounds and demographics to be able to come and see it for themselves. And that drove my passion to start TechLadies, which is a community-led initiative for women to connect, learn, and advance in the tech industry. And by community-led, I mean a few things. First of all, we are not registered non-for-profit. We are not a registered company or a school. We're just a bunch of people with full-time jobs and the same passion. And that means that we're always looking out for more support from the community. Through TechLadies, we are all here because we believe that technology is here for everyone. And our goal is to increase the women's participation and also create opportunities for women to join the tech industry. One thing that I heard, usually when I get to this part of the talk, men will feel that, do I belong here? Yes, you do. I think that being for women doesn't mean anti-men. Even for myself, my journey was men who brought me into the industry. And I think that everyone have a part to play to make our industry more diverse and more inclusive. And one thing that I also want to highlight is that gender diversity is not a woman's problem. It is an industry problem. And it needs all of us to come and make our industry better. So this is why you see, I don't know if it's what, say, they are all like our male allies who are helping us to helping bring TechLadies on around. So when it comes to increasing women's participation in the industry, this is the 6 programs that we currently run. I'm just going to quickly run through it. So TechLadies' goal is just a place for a community for women to find buddies to go to events with each other. A lot of times there are some events that women are interested in, but they don't dare to go themselves because they feel a little bit awkward. So this is just a way for women to find their buddies. We have seen women going to their first hackathon by finding buddies through TechLadies. The second initiative is the TechLadies Meet. This is a small roundtable discussion where we break them into different groups and have industry practitioners to answer any questions that they have. So we also tie up the topic. So every time we do a TechLadies Meet, there is a focus. Is it like front end? Is it JavaScript? And we tie it up to our study group, which is a self-paced, self-reliant. We just go to a cafe and we have a mentor who will answer any questions that we have. Coding Weekend is literally what it is. It's a weekend workshop where we teach women how to code. And Technical Talks, also it is what it is. It's an event where we feature 2 to 3 beginners, women who are first-time speakers. It helps them build their confidence in public speaking. And the last thing, which is the focus of today's talk, is TechLadies Bootcamp, our 12 weeks part-time programming bootcamp. So I've launched TechLadies in 2016, so right now we are about 3 years old. Just want to humble brag a little bit maybe, just show you the health of the community. Right now we reach to about 3,000 members in Asia, and we have 2 physical chapters, one in Singapore and one in Penang, Malaysia. And we have touched more than 500 women trained, of which I'm really proud of this. More than 10 women has now found engineering roles. I'll talk more about it later too. And our events are attended anything by 5 to 200 women. So now let's get started on how I started the first program in TechLadies, which is a TechLadies bootcamp, through this program design process. The first is the vision. A vision is basically the answer to the question of what you want to achieve. Like, what is the world that you want to see here? And what are some of the goals that you have? And knowing the answers to this question will also guide your thought process in terms of what you want to measure and what are the metrics that are important for you. For me, this is my vision. I want to see more women in meetups, in conference, on stage. I want to see them actually being employed in the industry. And that means getting more women into the industry as well. Now with the vision, the next step is to dive down into understanding what exactly is the problem. A lot of times companies come to me and ask like, hey, we want to engage with women. I will ask them like, what do you mean? And they will reply, we want to engage women. And then just sort of like a cyclical conversation. And I think it's a huge mistake to generalize like a demographic like woman. What does it actually mean? To help illustrate this problem is take a look at this photo. So these are 4 Asian women speaking in a panel discussion. They all have like shoulder length hair, but their background could not be more different. She's a CS degree holder. She's working at her own tech company. She used to be a fashion businesswoman, and now she's a software engineer. She has a CS degree and now works in a big tech company, and this is me. So these are very different people, very different profile, intentions, and aspirations. And how you engage with them, how you help them is definitely going to be very different. And for me, how do you figure out the different sort of like, what exactly is the problem, is to talk to people. When I was thinking like if there is even a value for a community like TechLadies, I reach out to different community groups, and I can see womanhood code over there. Yeah, and it's just one of the sort of like myths, I would say, is that every time when there's a new 4-woman group in Singapore, people will come and tell me like, hey, TechLadies now have more competition. And when I would tell them that no, I don't think it's competition because we are all going towards the same goal. And once we've achieved it, I think it's easier, we can all retire now, right? So we do have like monthly gathering of community leaders in Singapore pretty regularly, where we share notes on how to build community, how do you manage your finances, how much money have you spent, down to that detail, and how do you scale, and so on and so forth. So talk to your fellow community leaders. The other thing that I've also done is I would just randomly email these people, like Real Skill Summer of Code, Free Code Camp, Hack Dry Academy, and just say like, hey, I have this idea, this is something that I want to do. Could you tell me more about how you're currently doing your stuff that you do? And I was surprised that people are really nice. They would pretty much tell me, take time to go for a virtual call with me to answer any questions that I have. So ask and you shall receive. So based on talking to all of these people, this is sort of the user journey which I've shared before, and helps me to categorize women at different stages of the process to enter the tech industry. The funnel here is just based on the more women wants to explore the industry and so on and so forth into actually entering the industry. So now that I have a user map, the next step is to define who exactly am I helping, and also what are their challenges, what are their goals, and what are some of the things that can really help them help them succeed. So out of these categories, I'm sure there are like more systematic ways of deciding which category you want to help. For me, I wanted to help someone, the category that I am passionate about, and that is people in the commitment bucket. The group of women who knows that this is for them and just so close to entering the industry. For me, I am passionate about people like that because at the end of the day, this is an ROI. Given the amount of time that I have, what is the sort of like people whom I best resonate with myself to help. So, knowing sort of the category of people whom I want to help, the next step is to really figure out like who are they, like where are they now. Again, taking inspiration from product design, this is the user graph. It's again a well-worn path that we can take inspiration from. And this is where I landed. So women who wants to get into the industry but really need that little push are usually typically people like myself. They are between 25 to 35 who has missed the boat in terms of formal education and now would like to get into tech. For various reasons, they may be unable to quit their job to study full-time, and but you know what they have access to is not enough, namely the online stuff. Cool. So understanding what I want to achieve, understanding the problem, clearly define who I want to help. Now I have to decide like how I want to help them. And I'm going to show you the thought process on how I derived the TechLadies Bootcamp. Cool. So these are sort of the things that I am thinking about that helps me structure my thought a little bit. I want to help women become software engineers. I want something that's more intensive than one-offs or maybe a short series of workshops. From my experience, is that learning by doing is the best way to learn because you can begin and end in mind. And I want to help people to create real products, not small prototypes that you can't really level up in terms of your knowledge. And with all of this is the idea that I have. So TechLadies Bootcamp is a 12 weeks part-time programming bootcamp designed to help women with some basic programming skills to become professional programmers. And these ladies are guided by industry experts who will create products for non-profits. Again, they are learning by hands-on. This is intensive 12 weeks. And at the end of the day, the product is to be used by an external party. Just want to give even more information on what the bootcamp, the bootcamp that I started off with. Again, it's part-time. I don't care about where they are from currently or their nationality, simply because we are a community-led initiative. And they will learn in groups of 3, and therefore they will learn how do you do like merge conflict, and how do you communicate your work in a team. It's super intensive because we're expecting the woman to spend a minimum of 15 hours a week. And it's probably the last point might be a bit controversial, so we do charge. I'll share a little bit more about the learnings as to why. Well, basically it's because I want to be able to have the program sustain itself because like finding corporate sponsorship, is during working hours and I don't want being fired. Okay, so now we have gone through the entire process, decide like what I want to test in the idea, and it's now to actually bring it out to the world. Yay! So right now we have run 4 batches of the bootcamp, helping 10 NGOs and train 36 women. The amount of women is really not a lot because it's so intensive. We expect the coaches to spend anything from 150 to 200 hours just by coaching. People usually burn out after that, but I think it is what it is. And these are women who are ex-air stewardess, gymnastic teacher, you see there, customer service reps, and a bunch of people from different non-tech background. And out of these 36 women that we have trained, 11 of them have either gotten a junior role or an internship, with more of them in the tech industry, but in non-technical roles such as technical sales. And as I mentioned earlier, it's learned by doing, and I don't want to waste people's time by creating products that has no use. So we actually get them to build products for non-profits, and we help some of them here, including a film submission app, adoption app, a class management app, and also a donor management app. These apps are typically those that replaces Excel and paper, which you will be surprised to know how many non-profits are still using that. So some quick learnings in terms of like through the testing. Of course, when you test something, you need to be able to take some learnings with you out of it. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. The first lesson is that, to be honest, when I started, I didn't expect it to work because it's talking, we have to balance between the needs of the participants, the needs of the coaches, and the needs of the non-profit. So it kind of worked, and I think it's pretty good at 30%. Again, it's not very high, but we're just volunteers. Yeah. The second thing that I learned is that, I briefly alluded to this earlier, is that people learn better with the end goal in mind. A lot of times, especially for beginners, regardless of gender, you can read, but if you just practice without putting into context on like how it can look like in the real world, it's actually really hard to keep someone motivated to learn. The third thing is that a lot of people want to help, but they need some direction. Again, the bootcamp requires coaches, and these are people like yourself with like real full-time jobs. It's a hard ask, but it's also, it's possible. There are people who want to help. The fourth thing is that this part-time bootcamp, even though we charge, is only like 10 to 30% of what commercial bootcamp charges. So it's very cheap. And it is also something that can give back to the community because they are building a product. So I think it's good. What it means is that there's a huge demand. The first time I launched the bootcamp, we are only accepting 9 people, but we have 130 applications. And for someone who does not like doing administrative work, it was a lot to sift through. And therefore, from the second bootcamp onwards, we actually make people do a technical task before they can apply for the bootcamp. The same thing for charging the bootcamps. The first time round, it was $500 with fully refundable. This is just purely to help people commit to the program. And after that, I realized that, hey, if I do want TechLadies to continue sustaining itself and not go broke while doing it, I need to somehow get the funds out of it. So this is why, we charge. But we also offer a full scholarship for people who say that they cannot afford, no question asked. Cool. So the last thing which I felt was not really addressed in the product design thinking methodology, but I felt was very useful for me, is that after you're done through all of this thing, what can you leverage? What can you leverage for more impact? And one thing I learned is that when you give, people want to give back. A lot of bootcamp graduates have come to me and say like, hey, I want to be able to speak, I want to be able to mentor, I want to organize events. And like, how can you, based on their backgrounds, how can you share the stories so that it inspires more women? Or how can you work with other programs or leverage for your own programs? So with that, this is where I landed. I mentioned a bit earlier that some of the bootcamp graduates now come back as mentors. This coding weekend was inspired by one of the graduates who said that she's from Malaysia, she wants to give back to her home country, and therefore we all went over to do a workshop. Tech Talks also came from a TechLadies bootcamp grad who wants to say like, hey, I've learned all this thing, I want to be able to share my story, I want to train my skills as a public speaker, and therefore like, we supported her on that. And the last thing, bootcamp. Some of the bootcamp grads actually came back to mentor, some of them came back to organize bootcamps, and right now I am at the point of thinking that how can I use the TechLadies bootcamp, given that it is a part-time program, can it be leveraged as a prep school for commercial full-time bootcamps? Because I think this is a very sort of nice funnel to helping more women get the education and the help that they need. So these are a few ways to talk about leverage. And now, having gone through all the 6 steps, let's put them together, starting from vision, understanding like what you want to achieve, to understanding the actual problem, what are you trying to solve, to defining who you're trying to serve and what exactly are the needs, to creating different ideas, testing the ideas, and leverage the outcome of the idea that you just tested. And with all of these steps, this is how we sort of like balloon in terms of the things that we offer at TechLadies. And these are not, again, they're not like random stuff we do for fun, because it all maps back to a user journey, but all align to the mission of increasing women's participation and create opportunities for women in the industry. So my key takeaway of this talk that I hope you have, if you've forgotten everything, is to be intentional about how you want to design your programs, to really start from a key vision, understanding the problem, the people you want to serve, and then testing different ideas, iterate on that. And I'm very fortunate to say that for us, when people have gone through all of these steps, they do come back to contribute, and it's just amazing to see it. Cool. In the last part of my talk, I just want to quickly share some lessons learned from building the entire community. So the first lesson is that my sort of like formula for community building is having good people, vision, and resources equals to magic. Again, there are so many people who want to come and help and volunteer. What they need is direction and the resources to make things happen. The second thing that I learned is that marketing is just as important as programming. So, of course, if you have a good initiative, you should do a proper marketing to let people know. And often, by understanding your audience, you will know that reaching out to, for example, women currently in the non-tech industry requires a very different treatment because they're not on Twitter, they're not on Slack, they're not on Discord, which most of the time the technologies are at. So understanding like how to reach out to these people is actually really important, as well as like helping them get more visibility in the industry. The sort of third lesson that I have is that doing this process is extremely rewarding, because I didn't need someone to sign off the budget, I didn't need a manager's approval for me to do what I want to do. But through this experience, I can gain the skills that I otherwise wouldn't have in my professional career. In fact, in my current role in a big tech company, my hiring manager has explicitly said that my experience in TechLadies was sort of one of the, gave me the edge in terms of getting this role. The fourth lesson is that anyone can contribute even though you can't code, even when you cannot code. A lot of times when I just got started, I felt like, okay, I need to be good enough to write documentation. I need to be good enough to write open source, but it's like really hard to understand, the entire framework. And what I learned is that actually I didn't need to do that. Contributing to the community can be as easy as organizing events, helping out at events. I remember when I just got started, I was taking trash out of a conference. That is contributing to a community. Or it could be something as, recommending someone to be a speaker, because a lot of times people need that extra acknowledgement, that encouragement to be a speaker. Again, not technical at all. But the last lesson is that, I know this is like, really, really nice. I do think it's really nice. I want to be real with all of you that building a community has its costs as well. A lot of times that means staying back or working through weekends or vacation. And to be honest, it was a little bit too much for me last year that I just took a year off. And if that happens to you, I want you to know that it's also fine to take a break. So this is hopefully a helpful snapshot in terms of what the lessons learned in terms of building community and designing different programs. And I think that one of the last lessons is have fun. This is a community. You set the own rules. Just put all the cats you want on your slide. It works. So I'd like to close my talk with a story of Xing Tian, who is now a front-end developer at Miro. Her journey in tech really started when she was kicked out of a master's program in chemistry. Turns out it was not something that she wanted. And because of that, she started working as a customer service rep at a telco. But it was during that time where her friend introduced her into programming. And she was in love with programming. She was studying online resources and so on, but really needed that extra structure to help her realize her dream of becoming an engineer. She joined TechLadies Bootcamp, our very first batch, and I remember during the time when she was in the program, she was learning how to code all the way to 1 a.m. After her job, because she was just really, really into it. And today she has gone through being a back-end engineer, front-end engineer. She has even spoken at the Red Dot Ruby conference in front of the creator of the Ruby programming language. I think it's great, amazing story. And for me, as someone who is a psychology background, it's not an easy journey, but I do think that this is something that developer community is so welcoming, and I do think that's something that we should pass it on. Cool. I hope everything that I've shared so far is useful in helping you think about how you can contribute to your tech community and how can you strategically drive diversity, be it gender diversity or other kinds of diversity. And if you'd like to work with TechLadies, you can also bring TechLadies to the city. Happy to help. If not, please just everything that I've talked about, please steal it. Happy to share what are other programs and initiatives I do that you can replicate it for yourself. And this is my email address. And with that, I come to the end of my talk, and thank you very much.